in order to start to shift and make more money, make more impact, have more time, spaciousness, and time freedom, that restructuring of priorities is so incredibly important.
Welcome back to Duo On Air. I'm Abby.
And I'm Courtney.
And we're the ex-agency turned entrepreneurial team that puts the duo in Duo Collective. Our boutique organic marketing agency specializes in SEO, social media strategy, and branding.
We're an everyday pair of business besties / marketing experts obsessed with helping our community learn more about what it takes to run a business.
Which is why on Duo On Air, we're not holding anything back. We're giving you all the info we know about how to grow your business organically so you can be the confident CEO you were made to be.
And how to navigate life as a small business owner.
Whether it's on your own or with your best friend by your side, so grab your coffee
or your mimosa, we don't judge,
and settle in for a quick value-packed episode of Marketing Tips. Welcome back to the Duo On Air podcast. This is episode number 78, and I am thrilled to invite Andi on the podcast from Wee Wee Studio. So thrilled that after we recorded this episode, I couldn't ask her fast enough about joining her Conscious CEO program. We talked about some incredible, powerful strategies around growing your business with intention, and there were a few moments, if I'm being honest, where her suggestions scared the crap out of me, but in a good way. I knew that I had to take some of these strategies to heart if I wanted our business to grow with intention. And knowing how this episode impacted our business, I am so thrilled to see how it impacts yours. So let's dive on in. Hi, Andi. Thank you so much for joining us on the Duo On Air podcast.
Thanks for having me, Abby. So looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, this is going to be awesome. And plus, I'm like personally just excited because I feel like we're going to talk about all the things scaling. And I'm like, I want this like juicy information for myself. So
I got you, girl. I got you.
It's going to be great. So how about you just start by telling us about you and your business and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I actually worked in a corporate environment for many, many years. So I am not one of those people that, right out of college was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to start a business and I'm going to figure it out as I go. I was climbing the corporate ladder. I was working in the beauty industry and I really loved it. I loved the people I worked with. It was a place where I got to be really creative, work with really interesting, innovative people. I worked for a clean beauty brand when clean beauty was really just starting to become something that was, even a conversation. And so I did that for 10 years and there was never even really a moment where I thought, oh, I'm so interested in starting a business and this has been a really great launch pad for that. It was more so that I had the awareness that I had been really great at my job. I had moved up quickly. I was super devoted and committed. I had learned so much. And then I was having this moment of, and is this what I want my legacy to be? Is this what I want to be known for when, I look back on my life? And so I thought, this was a good thing to be known for this part of my life, but there's probably something else there. And so when I started thinking about starting a business, I had what I would call like entrepreneurial eras. I had multiple businesses kind of back to back. And some of those were quite successful and some of those were like total failures. And that gave me a lot of opportunity to learn and pivot and practice and test things out and figure out how to make money and how to lose money and all of those things along the way. And probably about 6 years into having taken that entrepreneurial era approach where I really had explored quite a few different things, I started to get really clear on what I wanted the next part of my business and my life to look like. And so today my company is called Wee Wee Studio. It actually was not something that I originally thought would ever become a business. And it was running in the background the entire time I had multiple other businesses. It started as my blog. I still have the blog. The blog is called Wee Wee Girl. And the blog now has a team of writers. We have about 4 different writers in a couple of different wellness categories. And it started as very much a personal blog first and foremost. And over time, I started to notice it was growing. I started to monetize as I noticed the growth. I'm sharing that as something that you just do, but that took several years to really figure out how to monetize the blog. And then I had this awareness that all of these folks that were coming to the blog and reading the blog, there was something deeper that could happen there. And so I started offering retreats and courses and workshops, consulting. I was doing some consulting work already in the space between leaving my corporate job and starting all these other little businesses that I was getting my hands into. And so I incorporated that into what eventually became Wee Wee Studio. And that is truly what the business is today. I'm actually launching a skincare collection later this year. So it'll be my first time launching a consumer product brand as a part of my company. But that is truly how the business came to be. There wasn't a moment where I sat down and said, okay, I'm going to write a business plan for this personal and professional development studio space. And this is what it's going to offer. It really unfolded quite naturally by doing the things I was already really getting incredibly lit up by.
Yeah, it's almost like coming full circle now by
Totally.
adding in the product.
It is 1000% coming full circle. I mean, I had this awareness like 2 years ago when I first started working on the product brand that I still loved the beauty industry, and I especially loved the clean beauty space. And the consulting work I was doing with a couple of other brands, I was really enjoying that still so much too. But I wanted to create something that was truly my own, and that I felt like spoke to the woman that I am and the women like me. And so I was like, here we go, full circle moment. Let's do this thing.
Mhm. That's awesome. And I love how you're bringing it all under one roof. I think those
Yeah.
are conversations we have with people all the time too, where I think a lot of people would take the vision of like, well, I still want to create this product, but I need a whole new brand. And we
Sure.
don't think about how you can do that. Your brand can be bigger than just the one thing.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. I love that you're launching it under your studio.
Yeah. Yeah. And over time, I'm already having meetings with consultants in that space. And it's a space I know really well, the beauty space, but I know that there are folks that know parts of it that I don't know. And so we're going to start direct to consumer. We're going to look at some retail outlet options and just see how it can grow. So that's been really fun to create. And it's also scary because at the same time, I am running my existing business while launching this brand new component of my business that is certainly not making any money yet and is costing us quite a bit of money to get started. So I have to be focused on two lanes. Right now, I have to be focused on what's going to continue to grow the existing business to support the continued scaling of our existing business while adding this component that is really quite different.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I'm sure that juggle is something which, well, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about this. But first, I would love to hear too. So on your studio client side of things, who are the typical people that you work with? Do you feel that kind of crossover too happening with like, do you work with a lot of product-based business owners, or is it a lot of just a mix of everything?
Yeah, it's really a mix of everything. The thing that most of the folks that I work with inside the studio business, the thing they have in common is they are truly deeply creatives at heart, first and foremost. And they understand that entrepreneurship is ultimately an expression of creativity. And that's really a fun place to be, where you know that what you're building and creating in your business is a part of that natural expression of who you are as a creative human being. So that is, whether they are service-based businesses or product-based businesses, they all ultimately have that like awareness in their heart of their innate creative nature. So that is definitely a piece of it. And they are, for the most part, really soul-led people also. They want to live a life that they are fulfilled by their work, that they do not have to embrace hustle as a mindset, that they can be impactful with the work that they do. And when they consider money as a driving factor, they consider impact equally. And they know that the more impact they have, the more money they have the potential to make. And it's important to them that they are a brand or a company doing, or a CEO doing really good stuff in the world. So I find that that means it's a lot of different types of businesses, but there is a through line on the mindset.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think every entrepreneur for the most part can relate to that of feeling like we did this because we want to make an impact, right? And we want to make a huge
Yeah.
impact. But then it comes down to being in your business and we end up working in the business, not on it. And we end up
Yeah.
working, like getting stuck in our inbox or worrying too much about the content we're creating, or just really kind of stuck in those small tasks that then don't make the impact, which
Yeah.
I'm sure is that something that a lot of your clients kind of struggle with.
Oh, 1000%. That getting out of the minutia of the business and getting into that 30,000-foot view of what you're ultimately building can be a really hard shift because we have so much on our plates day to day, especially for my clients that are solopreneurs, or maybe it's them plus one or two. And it's like, we're just trying to get through the day. We're just trying to check the boxes, all the tasks that need to get accomplished. And if it's a product-based business, it's like, we got to get stuff shipped. We got to get stuff on websites. We got to like make sure e-com is working. And I have some clients that have retail storefronts plus e-com. And it's like, oh, we're just trying to get the newest launch on the floor. And then if it's a service-based business, it's like, we're just trying to get through the one-on-one client offerings, or we're just trying to get an email out with the announcement of what we have coming up. So, all of that becomes the day-to-day stuff that begins to weigh you down. And all of a sudden that impact that you originally intended to make, you are making it moment by moment, but you start to lose sight of it and start to lose that like excitement of really feeling into what you can do for people, because you're not really seeing it on the same way that you hoped that you would. So one of the things I really work to help people with is to get restructured in a way that you can prioritize the things that do make an impact. And it does mean that sometimes stuff has to come off of your list, and sometimes you don't yet have the financial resources to pay someone else to take that stuff. And sometimes that has to be okay, where you're going to get rid of something to put your focus on something that has way more potential. And that can be really challenging when you kind of have to be in the do of it in order to make it go. That pause and restructure can feel really scary, but it is so important to actually begin to scale a business. And I've had clients that are like, okay, I've been stuck at 6 figures for 3, 4, 5 years. And now I am starting to get burnt out because I'm doing the same thing every day. I'm not seeing the needle tick upwards. And I'm kind of losing sight of that impact I wanted to make to begin with. So in order to start to shift and make more money, make more impact, have more time, spaciousness, and time freedom, that restructuring of priorities is so incredibly important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I hear that all the time too, just from overall. And I think a lot of times the things that get us stuck is that the fear of letting go of those things that you do consistently. Then you feel like the second you let them go, you're all of a sudden going to have less business, less income, less money. And that's why we don't let them go. And I think doing that hard work to determine like, okay, what are those things that I can cut? Because time is what we're fighting here. Like we're fighting the idea of like, we need the time to actually have that 30,000-foot view to look at the evolving of our business, or else if you don't have the time, you're just going to keep doing the same thing day in and day out.
It's so true. There's an exercise we do in my Conscious CEO coaching curriculum, and it's we call it the time spaciousness exercise. And in it, we do this work in which we're basically tracking everything you're doing for a week. And then we plug it into this formula in which we look at, okay, if it is not a 30,000-foot view agenda item that can also be creating potential of a $30,000 payout, then we need to shuffle it down the list. And only the things that are 30,000-foot view, $30,000 payout and we just use that as like an easy number to kind of get your brain around. But that's the stuff that gets shuffled to the top. And if there's anything that's hanging out, like I'm getting bogged down in my email, I'm getting bogged down in like some of these little details that just live on my to-do list, that stuff is probably more like 500-foot view, $500 potential. That stuff has to get shuffled down. And then we need to work to figure out, okay, if we shuffle that stuff down, what's the new strategy for your time in order to make the $30,000 and the 30,000-foot view stuff really have the time that it needs to help to grow your business. And one of the things we take away right at the beginning is the idea of a to-do list. So I don't have a to-do list. I have my clients get rid of their to-do lists, and we use time blocking, which is really like not something that's super, innovative or visionary. It's something that's been used a lot by really high functioning, really effective leaders forever. But it's becomes really hard for us because we're like, okay, I put a block of time, but then all this stuff came up and I've got all this to-do list stuff I still need to check off. So we start shifting from you have a to-do list to anything that comes up that is something that would have formerly gone on your to-do list goes into a block on your calendar. And then you check the calendar and you look and you say, okay, let me see everything that's on this calendar today. And are there things hanging out in my time? Because when it becomes a time list and not a to-do list, you start to think differently about where you're going to put your energy. So that's a practice that can be implemented right away that can be really helpful to start to reevaluate how you're doing things.
Yeah. The second you said that, I was like, to-do list, like, get rid of it. What, are you crazy? My brain, immediate anxiety sets in. And I think it's funny because if I think about my to-do list and then I think about converting it to time blocks, I know my to-do list is too long. I know the things I have to do this week are way more than what I have the time for, which is why our to-do list stresses us out, right? But the second it's almost like admitting it. Like, you just need to admit that that's the problem, and then you need to readjust. And I think having that, like, I know personally, just even me thinking about that process gives me insane anxiety, but then thinking about how I would feel afterwards is that's the goal, right? Is like getting rid of that.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that you can't, like, as stuff comes up through the day, like, make notes of the things that are coming up. But before you close out the day, you look back through that list of notes that you made through the day and you put that somewhere in a time block later. And so when you close your day, you stop ending the day with a to-do list staring at you, which inevitably creates that creates discontent in itself, that like, oh, I never get through it. I never get through it. I never get through it. If you are taking it and transferring it into your calendar, your Google Calendar or whatever it might be, all of a sudden it's like, all right, I finished the day and everything that was hanging out got transferred into a future time block. And so I'm good. I can close things out and feel great about my day.
I love that. I think that is something I need to practice myself. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit. We've talked a little bit about scaling and the hustle mindset, right? Because I feel like oftentimes when people think about scaling their business, they pair it with the only way to scale is to work harder and longer, because in order to scale, I need more time because I have to do more things to make more money, which eventually leads us into the world of burnout, which the majority of people have felt. How do you approach this? Like, how do you approach finding that next level with your clients?
Yeah, it's when I talk through these types of things, I sound like someone who like is innately like really structured and like organized. Like, for those that are astrology buffs, like, I sound very Virgo in saying this, and I'm really like, that is not me. I am creative minded first. I'm a Leo. I love, like, the performance nature of the business, like getting out there and talking to people about my business, about their business. But these are the places that we have to get really dialed in order to scale. So the things I think about first are efficiencies. So, like, for example, what are the things that you're doing that you believe that only you can do, that you are holding yourself back because you are not creating efficiencies and potentially delegation opportunities around? So a small example would be, if you have an intern and every summer you have a new intern, and every summer you're retraining a new intern, and you're not recording the trainings from this summer's intern to then use those same trainings to teach next summer's intern, that's an efficiency that you're missing. So, like, little things like that, just to create efficiencies in your business where you and your time is not being assigned to tasks that ultimately are not allowing you to drive more money, impact, and spaciousness in your business. So thinking about efficiencies, thinking about automations. The number one way I see people begin to find the ability to scale without burning themselves out, without taking more clients, without creating more products, without adding new offers to their business, whatever it might be, is through automations. And that could be, there's all sorts of ways we can create automations, whether that's like taking what you're doing in a one-on-one and turning that into a course, or taking what you're doing in a one-on-one and turning that into a group experience, or taking what you're doing in your email communications and turning that into some sort of nurture sequence, email funnel sequence. And when people say those things, I think back to me and where I was when I was starting my business. If someone was like, you got to implement a nurture sequence and you got to put together an email funnel and you got to figure out your automations and get your courses created, I would have been like, I don't know how to do all that. The technical around all that sounds like a lot. And just remember, like, a nurture sequence is just emails that go out automatically. So just figure out how you're going to do that. Email funnels, when we talk about funnels, and I'm using air quotes for those that are listening, that is, again, just emails that we're doing automatically. So think about the things that you're saying a lot to people and you're writing a lot, or you're having one-on-one calls about a lot, and turn that into communications that you can send automatically, or videos that you can share automatically. So really starting to look at where in your business you can automate will make a massive difference. And usually that comes with that looking at how you're spending your time and where you could make more sales if you reduced how much one-on-one time you're putting into either a client or a task or an activity. So really thinking about those things, and then considering your value, the value and the original reason you wanted to start your business to begin with, that original impact, and then looking at what is it truly that I do for people that I have tremendous value around, that is a talent that there are probably not many people that do this like I do it, and getting that value out there. I have a lot of clients that'll say, oh, I don't want to talk about this thing on social media, because if I talk about it on social media, I'm like giving it all away. And then, like, why would they ever want to hire me? Or why would they want to like buy my book? Or why would they want to, buy my course? And the reality is, like, in today's day and age, and I would have said this before the era of Chat GPT, but even more so now with AI technology, anything anyone wants to know, they can get it without hiring an individual to give them that information. The reason someone is going to hire you, the reason someone's going to buy your course or buy your ebook or buy your program or whatever it might be, is because they really believe in the value that you bring to the conversation. So remember that providing a ton of value is so important, and it is the reason someone will decide to spend their money with you. And so when you can take that value and package it up in really beautiful ways, you can really begin to scale much more quickly. And don't be afraid to start to give little doses of that value in ways that just attract people into your realm, into your community, into who you are.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot too. I actually think we just posted something today on Instagram about that, just about how sharing your value and the content that you have, it's someone who is going to take that and then just use it for themselves was never someone who was going to buy from you anyways.
Totally.
Like, you can go through all of our blog content, all of our podcasts, all of our free resources, and you can do everything that we are going, well, I guess that I am going to charge you for, because unless you can create a logo as beautiful as Courtney can, then, branding's a whole nother realm. But from an SEO perspective, you can audit your website with all of the tips and resources that I share through everything. And the people are deciding whether, if you want to do it yourself, great, but you were never going to buy from me anyways. You were never going to be a future client. Whereas someone who sees the content, sees how it's articulated, sees how we work and how we learn, and then how things like the validation behind we know what we're doing is the reason why then they convert. And I think we're so scared. We're so scared of oversharing. And I think that's such a non-issue ever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. And I think about, I have a client, for example, she is a web designer, and we were talking earlier this year, and she's like, I mean, for me to scale at this point, it's like, I have to take on either more web design projects. And eventually that means I then need to hire someone to come in and help me. And then I have to oversee them. And she was feeling really overwhelmed by the whole idea. She's like trying to start a family, and she wants to be traveling a bit more. And she's like, I'm not seeing, I'm not seeing where where the potential lies. And so what we landed on was and she charges a lot of money for her web design services, as she should. She's super talented. Her work is beautiful. And she's also like, that means that I'm taking like one big client, and sometimes it's like I have one or two of those going in a month. So then when I finish, I sometimes have months that are really scary because I don't necessarily have the next one onboarded because I spent so much time in the do with that one, and I haven't been selling to get the next one. And she's like, this just can't be sustainable. So the shift was in that automation piece was take this beautiful work you're doing, put together a template shop so that you can continue to take your one-on-one clients where you are doing the website build, up the prices on that, and then have these beautiful templates that people can buy all the time. She's launching that now. And so we're looking at like how much freedom she's going to have and more money coming in at the same time when she starts selling templates, which are a much lower price point, still beautiful, more accessible to more people. And then she still gets that opportunity to do that one-on-one work and build these other gorgeous websites that she's building. But she can now charge more money for that because she has this second tier option. So when you start to like build out options for your potential future clients as well, especially ones that are automated, like in her case, this template shop, she'll build it once and then people will purchase on repeat. Then you really start to see some real scaling potential because you are taking yourself out of having to be in that do and in that you as the time resource that has to be involved in every component of the business.
Mm-hmm. I think that's something, as being a service provider, like that is something that I think a lot of service providers struggle with is figuring out, we're constantly trading time for money, right?
Yeah,
and it's figuring out how is that scalable if there's really two approaches. And I'm sure there is way more, but there's two approaches that come out of where you can go: hire people, sell products or courses.
Yeah.
And I feel like there is a whole sea of other options out there,
sure.
but we don't take the time to have that 30,000 foot view to then like back up and be like, okay, what is it that I want to do and how do I want to grow? We just think like, oh, I have to add people to my team or I have to make a course. And if I don't do that, I can't scale.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. There's so many ways to do it. And you just have to find the way that naturally aligns to your energetics and what really feels good to you. So exploring those different options is really important. If you decide it's going to be a course, but your heart's not in that, and that doesn't really feel like you, it's not going to do what you want it to do, because you're not going to feel comfortable selling it. You're not going to really be in a place to deliver in the way that you could, in the same way that you do with a one-on-one client, because that doesn't really feel authentic and natural to you. So that would not be the best plan for you if that's like how you feel about that sort of thing. So you got to find the thing that works for you. And there are so many great options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I'd say that's where really investing in someone to help you do that, because a lot of times we have small teams, or we're solopreneurs, or we're really in that silo where you don't have the opportunity to really connect with someone like a coach or talk with someone else, or even just a community of people and brainstorm ways that you can scale in a way that feels good to you, rather than just choosing the options that might not feel right.
Yeah. I think that the smartest entrepreneurs, the best CEOs, have what they're really great at is mindset work, and they're really great at surrounding themselves with people that are going to help them to see their blind spots, to see into the places within their business and within themselves that they cannot see. And so when we are going this alone and we don't look for that team of people, and I don't mean a team like folks that you're necessarily hiring as employees, but your team being like your therapist, your coach, the person you work out with, like whoever your best friend that you can like your best, your business bestie that you can like bounce ideas off. That's really the team as a solo entrepreneur or as a small business owner that is going to help you to scale, because they're going to see things and be able to support you in ways that you just can't quite do all on your own.
Yes, the amount of Instagram DM voice messages I have with people consistently about, is this a good idea? Should I do this? Like, yeah, it would be. And I have a partner in my business, and like that is something too, where I feel like even if you do work in your business with people, you do still need outside opinions, and you need an outside perspective, because you can just be stuck in this tunnel vision that you don't even know there's another side to it.
1000%.
Yeah. All right. So we talked a little bit about like calendar and structuring your calendar with time blocks and everything else. When we first connected, you had mentioned structuring your calendar to better hit revenue and sales goals. Is that kind of the same approach with time blocking, where you would basically block your time accordingly to make sure that you are not taking client calls or not taking certain things when you have big launches planned?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a couple of things that are really important when we're talking about driving revenue and how we're using our time. One of the first things I would check into, if you haven't yet done this in your business, do you have financial goals? Do you have a P&L, which for those that don't know what that is, it's a profit and loss statement. For those that are like, of course it's profit and loss statement. I look at mine all the time. That's really important to have in your business, to know what historically you have done month over month over month, and then use that P&L to future project and create a budget plan. And when I talk about a budget plan in this sense, this is not necessarily a spending plan. This is a sales plan and a spending plan. So what is it that I want to sell? What is my goal? What are my sales goals? And then what am I going to spend to support those sales goals? And then take that. So let's say, for example, you're launching a new program in August, and you are intending to sell $10,000 in this new program. So you got to, of course, break that down. How many units of this program or this product do I need to sell to hit that sales goal of $10,000? And then start to back into the timing structure that you're setting up on your calendar from starting in August going backwards. So in my Conscious CEO curriculum, we have this launch planning template, and it is about an 8-week template. So we plug in, okay, you've got a launch coming up. This is the date for the launch. Now let's backfill, and our template does all the calendar math for you, but it basically backfills. Here's all the things you need to accomplish leading up to that launch, starting 8 weeks in advance of it. Then you can take those activities, drop them in your calendar, and look at your game plan. So then it's like, okay, if week 4 is when I really want to start creating content about this launch, I can't have a week of one-on-one calls and no time for content creation in week 4 and be successful with the launch. And so what often happens is we're like, okay, the launch is coming. We're building on the materials for the launch, or we're creating the product, whatever it might be. And then we get there and we're like, okay, I got the sales page up and I've got the launch ready to go and I have all the content for the launch, but like, oh my God, how am I going to sell it? And so because you haven't back planned, when are you going to build your sales page? When are you going to build that email automation series? When are you going to batch create the content for the launch? When are you going to have some beta testers try it out to make sure everything's working and give you some feedback on what they loved and what they didn't love? When are you going to plug all of those things in? All of that takes time. And if you aren't planning for that sales success by plugging all of that into your calendar, you're all of a sudden overwhelmed. And it's like, you've heard women say it many times. Oh my gosh, I just had a launch. I'm so burned out. It was the craziest thing ever. I feel, I'm completely exhausted. And now they've launched the thing, and maybe they did make some sales, but now they got to like get into action around whatever it is that they just sold, and they're completely wiped out. And that's because that back planning of the calendar didn't really happen, and everything had to happen right at the last moment to make it successful.
Yeah, I think we all know this. Like, we all know in our brains that like this is the problem, right? And then we do it again and again and again. And I think it's literally, you just have to take a point and you have to stop and you have to say like, I need to do this differently because I can't keep
Yeah.
doing it the same way. And that's usually the problem, which like we've done it all the ways where we've had a launch and we literally prep no content and we've just like, okay, it's here. Hopefully someone
Let's
finds it.
go. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've had other situations where we've been very prepared. And I think it's situation like, and then there's other times where I can think right now, we don't have like a plan for something else we want to do. And I think we all know that that's what we need to do. You just need to take action in it. And I think
Yeah.
like having something like a template is definitely super helpful because it just opens your eyes to, oh, like the launch is 4 weeks away and I really should be more prepared than I am right now. Like
Yeah.
it's not possible, or I'm going to waste my nights or my evenings or take time away from my family or whatever that is in order to make
Yeah.
this happen. And then that's usually something that we're not okay with.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest goal I have for the people I work with is time spaciousness. Like, let's make sure you have time for your family. Let's make sure you have time for travel. Let's make sure you have time for your friends, whatever it is that's important to you, financial freedom, and that impact piece. So, everything, like every tool that I have created in either the Conscious CEO program or our retreat programming when we have women come together in that way, or even our courses, everything in those experiences are about giving you tools, resources, the mindset, etc., to be able to live a life that you have the time, you're making the impact, and you're financially comfortable with where you're at in your business. And if you can create that, then you're doing it. You're living a life that you can feel really proud of.
I love that. Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So what would you, just to kind of summarize this up a little bit, what would you tell someone who's kind of struggling to get to that next level of their business? They don't want to sacrifice their time and energy, right? Like we don't want to dig into that hustle culture. What would be your one piece of advice?
I think my biggest advice would be to let go of any preconceived ideas of what success looks like and reconsider how you've done things up until this point and step into that place of having big vision for a moment and really turn every stone to see what could be possible in your business if you made some shifts in the way you're doing things. And then once you do that, then you can start to really drill down and get more granular about, okay, I'm going to do some things different with content. I'm going to do some things different with my calendar. I'm going to do some things different with my offers. Maybe I'm going to raise my prices or create a second tier of pricing. So the first step is to let go of there is only one way to do this. Let go of those preconceived ideas of what success looks like and start to really think about each area of your business in a new way. And oftentimes the best way to do that is to get some support, get someone to come in and look at it with you. And then you can get really off to the races with what comes next.
I love it. Awesome. Well, why don't you tell everyone where they can go to find you and follow you for all of this goodness?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So you can check out all of the different programs that we have available in Wee Studio at weeweestudio.com. It's OUI, the French word, yes. And we, like you and me, Abby. So it's weeweestudio.com. And then the blog is Wee Wee Girl, OUIWEGIRL. Lots of good resources there too. We're on Instagram at both places. Wee Wee Girl is my Instagram. Wee Wee Studio is the studio's Instagram, and then you can also check out our podcast, which is called Your Woo Woo Best Friend. Lots of business thinking on your woo woo best friend. We're just thinking we're really looking at things from that through a different lens, through a little bit more of a woo woo lens. So go check out all of those things, and certainly send me a DM if you come over and give us a follow on Instagram and let me know that you found me through the show.
Awesome. Also, do you speak French?
A very tiny bit. Nothing that I'm super proud of anymore. My dad would be embarrassed and say he does for sure, and he would be like, Don't embarrass
So
yourself.
it's part of your lineage. So then there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I love it. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Andi.
Thanks so much for having me, Abby. This has been great fun.
If you like this episode, please be sure to share it with a friend and subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes dropping every Monday. Plus, if you haven't already, please go ahead and leave us a review and don't hesitate to share any new episode ideas. We absolutely love hearing from you and creating this content for you. See you next week.